After 5 days of play, I can tell you that Far Cry 5 is a really big game, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. At time of this writing, my story progress sits at 57%, and the online component, Far Cry Arcade, has just gone live for reviewers. So this review is still in progress, but here's what I think so far.
A wretch like me.
Please, are you there? Is somebody there?
Rural America isn't quite as exotic or exciting a playground as a tropical island or the Himalayas, but the open world map of fictional Hope County, Montana is, in true Ubisoft fashion, packed with so much to find and so much happening at any given time, it's easy to get distracted from the mission at hand. That's not a complaint. I like games with big possibility spaces. The element of randomness means everybody will have their own unique experiences in the campaign. The scenery and action don't look quite as nice as, say, Assassin's Creed Origins, but it's a great looking game. While the Far Cry formula remains addictive, there is a certain amount of sameness to it. The tasks required of you, the weapons at your disposal, and the supernatural dream sequences are all so similar to Far Cry 3 and 4 that there isn't much by way of surprises in store in those departments. It's still a blast to play, and the brutal combat remains ever so satisfying, but Far Cry 5 doesn't feel like a revelation.
Destroy all that we have built here together. Some will betray us.
Our main villain this time is a zealot leader named Joseph Seed. He's a respectable threat, but his acts of terror haven't left the same impression on me that Voss or Pagan Min did in the previous 2 games. Seed hasn't had any particularly memorable lines, and his motivation for wanting to end the world is, at this point, still unclear. While your unnamed sheriff's deputy character is a mute either way, I like that for the first time in a Far Cry game, you can choose between a male and female protagonist and do some light customization. But for a series as bonkers as Far Cry is, the customization options here are a little conservative. One way Far Cry 5 changes things up is that the structure of the main quest has been improved. In order to get to Seed, you need to eliminate his 3 lieutenants first. A couple missions glitched on me, but it usually provides a very video game path through several bosses on your way to the final boss. Faith, the one female boss, is probably the most interesting of the 4. She employs a drug called Bliss to cause hallucinations in her victims, and those sequences end up being some of the most visually interesting moments. But I don't expect any of these leaders will end up being remembered like Far Cry 3's incredibly creepy Voss still is today. Another significant change is that while Far Cry has always been primarily about playing as a one-man army, here you spend less time alone than in previous games. There are more NPC allies to meet, all of whom are well-written and likable.
You made it just in time for all the fun! And you brought Tulip back in one piece!
Then there's the gun for hire system, which allows for both companionship when you're not playing in co-op and new combat possibilities. 9 different specialists can be recruited, offering assistance in the form of air support, sniper support, or even animal buddies. It's yet another way to customize your experience and generate some fun, random craziness. It's also notable that there are many more options for getting airborne now. Unlike in Far Cry 3 and 4, planes and helicopters are abundant in Hope County. It's nice to order a helicopter and take the scenic route to your destination. Once you get there, that extra firepower can be helpful too. The next steps before I wrap up this review are to finish the campaign and then dive into Far Cry Arcade, which is a crazy looking level and mission editor. In the meantime, if I had to score it now, I'd give Far Cry 5 an 8.9 for great. I'm really enjoying Far Cry 5, and I think this is another great entry in Ubisoft's most daring, risk-taking franchise. Look for my final review later this week. For more, check out the first 11 minutes of gameplay and an overview of what's new in Far Cry 5. And for everything else, stick with us here at IGN.